Today, let's talk about military exercises and maritime security in our region. And our guest is my old friend Romel Benlaoui, president of the Philippine Society for International Security Studies and director of the Philippine-China Studies Center at Diliman College. Hi, my friend Romel.
Hello, Ian, Dr. Yan and Dr.
And also our other guest is Professor Hu Bo, an old friend of us, the director of the SDSPI. Professor Hu Bo, hello, morning.
Hello.
Well, let's talk about the Balikatan 2026. Well, it is the 41st iteration of the U.S.-Philippines joint military exercises, and it concluded as the largest and most multinational in history, and involving roughly 17,000 troops and lasting 3 whole weeks and spans air, land, and sea. So I want to first ask our two guests, what is the intention of this exercise, and who is the imaginary target? Romel?
Well, we have to call a spade a spade. Of course, the main intention of the Balikatan exercises, although during the opening ceremony, the American officials stated that it is not intended to target any country in the region, and it is not an anti-China exercises. But if you will look at the context of the way it is being held, it's really countering China's growing presence in the region. And if you also look at the location of the exercises, these are locations affecting China's core interests, like the Taiwan issue, and key interests like the South China Sea, and all maritime domain that also affected China's influence. So although there is official statement that is not targeting China, but if you look at the outcome of the exercises, it's really countering China's influence in the region.
Professor Hu Bo, do you think this intention is targeted in China? And also, as my friend Romel said, well, the location is very important. And many people online thinking that it is the strategic, one of the most important strategic purpose is for a potential cross-strait contingency in the year 2027. What do you think, Professor Hu Bo?
I think as to the intentions of the Balikatan exercise, just as Dr. Romeo has mentioned, that China definitely is the target. And I think there are two kinds of intentions. First of all is strategic intention. US, the Philippines, and Japan and others, they want to use this kind of exercise to enhance the deterrence against China. And this is a strategic signal, and also to the region. The second category, I think, is operationally. Operational intentions, I think the most important is interoperation. They emphasize interoperation among the allies in the East Asia. And in the longer picture, I think just as you're seeing, yes, someone talking about Taiwan, it is prepared for the Taiwan contingency. But for me, I think it is a joke. I think the serious people, we all know that the Taiwan contingency in 2027 is a fake news. The forces and the capabilities showed in Balikatan is very powerful and very capable. But if the Taiwan contingency really happened, this kind of forces and capability will not make something differences. So my meaning is that this kind of forces, when encountered with really Taiwan contingency, is something like a joke.
So we don't have to worry too much about the Balikatan.
I think for China, I think the challenges, the diplomatic challenges and the strategic challenges, I think the Balikatan 2026, I think really with this kind of strategic and diplomatic challenges rather than military challenges.
Well, talking about strategic implications, originally designed, the Balikatan is only between the United States and the Philippines, right? But so far, after 40 years, this year we see like almost 7 countries all participated in this multilateral joint military exercises. So I wanted to ask Professor Rommel that why it is becoming a multilateralization of military drill.
It is a realization of years of planning by the United States to include other allies in Asia in protecting the Asia Pacific region, and at the same time, helping the Philippines build its capability to respond to any military contingencies in the area. So it's a product of years of planning. And this year's Balikatan is in fact the realization of these years of planning involving American allies in Asia joining exercises in the Philippines. So if you will notice, the Philippines has already signed 4 major agreements with American allies, aside from Philippine-U.S. Mutual Defense Treaty and Visiting Forces Agreement. We have the Philippine-Australia Status of Forces Agreement, and we signed the Philippines-Japan Reciprocal Access Arrangement, and very recently with France, the Philippines-France Status of Forces Agreement, and we are talking to other Western partners to also come out with the same arrangement. And this is part of U.S. plan to integrate its network of allies in Asia. They call this the like-minded states. Why? Because of the basic principle now in the United States, the core idea of liberal order set by the United States is now being challenged because of a new regional order emerging in Asia and the wider Indo-Pacific region, and they want to prepare for that. We can also see here the changes also in Japanese security policy in the region. It is strengthening its military presence and intensifying its defense cooperation with other countries, including the Philippines. Now, Japan and the Philippines are now talking about arrangement for the transfer not only of defense technologies but also of defense equipments, of fighting equipments, and we are also talking the same thing with South Korea and other American allies. So what's the bottom line of all these things? The United States is telling the Philippines that in building your capacity, we are all helping you. You are not alone in this struggle in the region. And because the Philippines, under the current administration, has growing anxieties about China's assertive activities in the South China Sea. And so the allies responded by saying that, hey, we will not ignore you, we will help you. So you'll see a lot of Western allies helping the Philippines now, building its capability to defense. But for me, I consider that as a source of concern, because it's not inclusive, because you are excluding one major participant in the region, and that is China. So if there is really a very benign intention about all this, what they call the multilateral maritime exercises, then you have to include China, because China is also a major stakeholder in the promotion of peace and security in the region. By excluding China in the process, I consider this as a way of ganging up against China. So if you want to erase that idea that these countries are ganging up against China, then there must be a way to include China in the process. Otherwise, these military exercises will be misinterpreted as a dress rehearsal against China. You have to include China in the process, because excluding China will only create a message that all these military exercises are targeting China. And in order to remove that kind of perception, you have to include China. And, China is very active in a lot of multilateral arrangements through the ASEAN Regional Forum, ASEAN Defense Ministerial Meeting, and ADMM Plus. So these are all existing mechanisms with China's participation. Why create another mechanism that exclude China? So you have to include China to erase that kind of notion that this is an anti-China military exercises. So that's one point that I want to stress. Second, I'm very much concerned about the nature of Balikatan exercises this year, marking the 75th anniversary of Philippines-U.S. Security Alliance. The Mutual Defense Treaty was signed 75 years ago. This is a landmark exercise because it's intensifying the militarization of the exercise. Before, we were only doing exercises to increase interoperability of American and Filipino forces in the area of counterterrorism, in the area of disaster response. Now they're talking about territorial defense. And for me, the most alarming part of these exercises is the testing of missiles. What for? Missiles are not intended for counterterrorism. Missiles are not intended for disaster management. Why there is a need to test missiles? So you will see, you really put a lot of suspicion. You can really put a lot of suspicions because of the nature of the way they conducted the exercise. And more importantly, this is a historic exercise because it includes not only land, but also water and air. So it's really a big thing. It's a really big thing. For me, this is a game changer. Okay? And in order to make this game-changing event really contributory to peace and stability in the region, then they need to include China. Because by excluding China, this kind of exercises will only be viewed as an anti-China exercise.
It sounds to me that with the help of the United States and all its allies like Japan and Australia and every other countries, that the Philippines is receiving a lot of support. And it seems that this multilateral collective defense security architecture is already established. And also you said that China is excluded from these military exercises. I want to ask Professor Hu Bo that what is China's reaction to this large-scale military exercises? Is China happy about this?
China definitely, I think, not happy, but I think for political and strategic meanings. And also, as Romeo has mentioned, that this kind of exercise excluded China and also more emphasize really combat rather than just the surface exercise. So focus on the real contingency. But my point is that I think the Philippines should know that, should think about that. Except the US and Japan, other countries, including Australia and Canada, they couldn't build credible military presence in this area. So for whatever the support the Philippines think, this kind of support usually are strategically and diplomatically. For the real contingency, real incidents, I think in the foreseeable future, I think this kind of support has nonsense. So I don't agree with you that there are multi-polar defense. US seriously, Japan maybe seriously, but other countries, even they have the intentions, they couldn't do that. So there are low multilateral defense in the South China Sea, I think, as Philippines thinks.
So Professor Hu Bo means that the Philippines' first biggest supporter is the United States, and the second one is Japan. So talking about Japan, Philippines and Japan will enhance your military and security ties since many years ago. But last year you have signed a reciprocal access agreement, the RAA. So I wanted to ask Professor Romel, what do you think to what extent does this iteration of the Balikatan serve as a functional validation of the RAA? It is cross-border military cooperation between Manila and Tokyo.
because of the signing of the RAA, now Japan was able to send more troops to the Philippines. It's like, wow, we saw Japanese troops again in our territory, you know. So again, that's a game-changing event, because before we only see smaller numbers of Japanese forces. Now we see huge number of Japanese forces, and they are allowed under the agreement to do that because of the reciprocal access arrangement. Japan is planning to do more of such exercises in the future, not only for purposes of interoperability, but also in terms of transferring defense technology and even delivery of weapons for the Philippines, so that the Philippines can increase its national defense capability. But for me, we welcome such kind of assistance from regional partners. But I think for me, it is very essential for the Philippines to develop also our self-reliance defense posture, because relying too much on the United States, relying too much on Japan and other partners in the region, that will lessen the capability of the Philippines to develop its own strategic autonomy. So now we are so beholden now with the US, we are so beholden now with Japan. But for me, in order to overcome such kind of reliance with these powers, we really have to diversify. So I regret that in the midst of all these developments with Japan, with the United States, and with Australia, and even with France and other Western allies, you know, the state of Philippines-China military-to-military relationship is rock bottom. You know, our defense officials are not talking, and there is no mill-to-mill relationship between the Philippines and China. There is no defense cooperation. Before, the Philippines and China was holding the annual defense and security talks. Now, for the past 3 years, we have not conducted such kind of talks. And for me, conducting this Philippines-China annual defense and security talk is essential to clarify the activities of the Philippines with these countries, and at the same time to rebuild confidence. But because of zero military ties between the Philippines and China, Philippines conducting exercises with US, Japan, and other countries will really give you a suspicion that China is really targeted. So for me, in order to remove such kind of suspicion, it is very important for the Philippine government to resume our defense cooperation with China, because China is also an active player in peace and security. So without the participation of China, it will only create a lot of anxieties in the region. And unfortunately, in that context, the Philippines will be put in the middle of geopolitical rivalry. So in my proposal, and I have been writing about this for the past 2 weeks, that instead of the Philippines becoming like a theater of geopolitical competition of major powers, the Philippines can become a bridge of understanding among these competing major powers. That this is an important moment for the Philippines to play a more constructive role by bridging the relationship among major powers: Philippines, US, Japan, and China relationship. And in that case, I think if we will include China in the process, it will lessen mutual suspicions in the region. So the key here, Dr. Yan Yan, is to exert extra efforts on the part of the Philippines and China to resume our mill-to-mill relationship, military-to-military relationship, because we have defense cooperation agreement, and we need to resume that. And in the bilateral consultative mechanism in the South China Sea, we need to open up another opportunity for talks on security matters. That's the thing. Unless we resume our annual defense and security talks, exercises of the Philippines with China, US, Japan, and other major powers will be misconstrued as an anti-China exercise.
Yes, I think you bring a very important issue is that to build trust and confidence between our two countries, China and the Philippines, it requires direct communication and direct cooperation, especially security cooperation between two of our countries to solve the problem. So I wanted to ask Professor Hu Bo, do you think there's any room left for China-Philippines mill-to-mill cooperation on any level?
Before you answer this question, I would like to add some points on the consequence of this kind of exercise. I think there are some consequences the Philippines would not like. The Philippines may be saying this kind of exercise with Japan and the US would enhance their defense capabilities and enhance and improve their cause when dealing with China. But the real situation is on the contrary. The more Philippines conduct with this kind of exercise with the United States and Japan, the more China's military activities and presence would be around the Philippines. You will say in this BALIBACA 2026, there are a large scale of the PLA military presence and activities in the South China Sea and the Philippine Sea. Definitely, this kind of deployment and activities were the response for the BALICATA 2026. I think this kind of consequence the Philippines will not like. So, as to your question, I think Beijing sometimes is desperate to build a relationship with the Philippines. We faced at least two kinds of Philippines. One Philippines represented by the Foreign Ministry of Philippines. They welcome the diplomatic channel and cooperation with China. But the other Philippines represented by the Philippine Coast Guard and the Philippine Armed Forces, they continues to challenge China every day in the South China Sea. And even at other place. How should China react? So I think sometimes China is very, is in a dilemma, and also we couldn't understand the real situation in Manila. So I think military channels between China and the Philippines even worse than China and the United States. In the United States, we have many channels for the crisis management and for dialogue. But for China and the Philippines, so far I couldn't say any serious channel and dialogues. We have CBM, but mostly the CBM is between the foreign ministries. Even the uniforms are included, but generally this kind of CBMs are the diplomatic mechanism. We have MMO between the Coast Guards, but I think the Philippines side, their view is very negative on the memos. So the memos just symbolic. I think no credible meanings.
Professor Rommel, do you think there's two types of perspectives regarding China-Philippine relations, one from the foreign ministry and one from the armed forces and paramilitary forces like the Coast Guard? And why there are these two different thinkings regarding the bilateral relations?
Well, it has been that way since 1986, when our foreign and security policy is always divided into two types of bureaucracy, the security sector and the economic and diplomatic sector. When it comes to the economic and diplomatic sector, we have no problem. We want to strengthen our relationship with China because that is very important for our own economic development. But the security sector has a different thinking about it because the security sector is very much influenced by the United States. And for me, the American factor is very important in understanding the behavior of the Philippines when it comes to foreign and security matters. And that is why the Philippines, the United States is innovating its approach in dealing with the Philippines, strengthening the economic sector so that the economic and diplomatic sector will also support the security sector. Right now, the United States is exploring the implementation of what they call Luzon Economic Corridor. That the security alliance between the United States and the Philippines will also spill over to economic development. And that's part of the agenda in order to tell the economic and diplomatic sector. Part of the strengthening of the alliance is also the economic side. And that would, in fact, weaken Philippines' economic connections with China and strengthen Philippine economic connections with the United States and other allies in the region, because the Luzon Economic Corridor aims to include not only the United States but also Japan and other Western like-minded states. And that is why we need to pay attention to that project, because the Luzon Economic Corridor, when it becomes successful, it will also be implemented in other islands of the Philippines, including Visayas and Mindanao. In fact, the United States now is exploring the possibility of creating a logistical depot in Davao City in order to access the important island, which is Mindanao. And U.S. is also strengthening its foothold in Visayas. So it's like an archipelagic in order to make the Philippines an essential part of the United States Indo-Pacific strategy. And China needs to pay attention to that new developments. But indeed, right now, as we speak, our bureaucracy is really divided between the security sector and the economic and the diplomatic sector. And the economic and diplomatic sector, they have clear agenda. They want greater economic cooperation with China and other countries. But the security sector also has a very strong agenda to strengthen Philippine alliance with the United States and other like-minded states, with the main intention of, let's call a spade, really countering China. That's a sad thing, because everything is being militarized now, and they are also weaponizing economic development tools. So they're weaponizing everything because of their rising fear of China. And China needs to help the Philippines also ameliorate that kind of fear. And I see a lot of windows of opportunities for China to do that. Let's harness our existing communication mechanism to clarify a lot of things affecting our bilateral relationship. The energy talks, the bilateral consultative mechanism in the South China Sea, and even the negotiation of the code of conduct in the South China Sea. We can use all these mechanisms to strengthen our relationship in security field, and also harness the ASEAN Defense Ministerial Meeting, the ASEAN Regional Forum. Always make a bilateral sideline meeting in order to strengthen our bilateral relationship, with the main intention of improving not only economic and diplomatic ties, but with the intention of repairing damaged security ties.
I do agree with you that it seems that everything is militarized now, and it seems to me that the security sector is now in dominance of the Philippines. So I wanted to ask about the EDCA side. You see that there are 9 military bases in the Philippines under these Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, the EDCA. Under this Balikatan 2026 exercises, does this 9 EDCA sites put into any use, like helping to achieve the logistics or interoperability standards?
They are being utilized in the current Balikatan exercises, especially in Luzon and in Palawan, okay, and even in Cagayan de Oro, Mindanao. They are all utilized because there are existing American military facilities there, not only for barracks or dormitories or accommodations of American personnel, but also a lot of communication facilities that aims to increase the capability of the Philippines to achieve maritime domain awareness, a lot, because I have seen some of these sites of the United States. They call it the American military facilities inside Philippine bases. But in my observation, as a Filipino security scholar, although the United States and the Philippines are talking about 9 sites for enhanced defense cooperation agreement, practically the United States can access all Philippine bases. All Philippine bases. They can access. The 9 are just formalities because they set up structures, communication facilities, radars, coast watch stations, and other important facilities that can support American military activities in the Philippines. But practically, based on my observation, because of the nature of Philippines' U.S. security relationship, U.S. has practically access to all Philippine bases all over the country.
I think even without the exercise, of the bases has been used by the U.S. militaries more and more. So that's not a news.
So, talking about China, Professor Hu Bo, I wanted to ask, during the past 3 weeks when the Balikatan was enduring, so what does China do? Does China conducting similar exercises in China's surrounding waters?
Yes, I think according to the media and reports, China has at least sent 2 formations. One is in the South China Sea, the other one is in the Philippine Sea. There's a joke in China's social medias. China demanded to participate this exercise. So we volunteer to participate this exercise. I think first of all, China kept high alert on this exercise and has make lot of preparations and deployment in response to this exercise. The first of all, I think China is monitor the situation and make reconnaissance on the operation exercise. And secondly, I think China also has conduct response exercise, such as China has the 055 destroyer has fired NG-20 missiles, the hypersonic missiles, I think the targeted mobile targets at sea. So that's a strategic signal to, I think, not to Philippines, but to the United States and Japan. So I think you will say, my point is that I've talked about before that I think the consequence for the Philippines is not as good as Philippines think. So the more this kind of exercise the Philippines conduct with this Japan and the United States, I think China will send more and more military forces around the Philippines and target Philippines. But frankly speaking, I think for a long time, China has never said Philippines is our military target. Even we have disputes in the South China Sea. I should speak very frankly that China has never taken the Philippines as an enemy, as an opponent militarily. But unfortunately, that the Philippines in the last 2 or 3 years, the Philippines take China as the #1 threat and even military threat. So it's in the Beijing, the people couldn't understand. China has never threatened the Philippines. Even we have a dispute in the South China Sea. So there are very huge recognition gap, and I think that even the narrative gap between China and the Philippines. So I think the Philippines has very bad misunderstanding and misconclusion on China's intentions.
Well, talking about cooperation, well, under this Middle East crisis and global energy threat, I remember the last month, President Bongbong Marcos said that China and the Philippines should start joint exploration of oil and gas. So, do you have any update on this? And do you think that China and the Philippines can talk about oil and gas joint development again in the South China Sea? My friend Romel?
Yeah, in my observation, many things are being discussed positively on media, but on the ground, nothing much is really happening when it comes to the joint development of natural gas and oil. And also, there are many forces in the Philippines pushing against that kind of talks. And I think I'm the only I'm the lone wolf, the only voice saying that, oil talks with China is not only about oil, it's about talking about larger issues of our relationship. If you will look at many analysts now, common friends of us, Yan Yan and Dr. Hubo in Singapore, in Australia, in the United States, and in the Western world, they are following single line. They want to push back against China, and they are against the oil talks with China. And I'm telling them, why are you doing that? Are you not happy that the Philippines and China are talking? Already, unlike before, we are not talking. Now we are talking. So why are you disrupting the process of talks? You want us to stop talking and start fighting. For me, talking is very, very important. So why disrupt the process of talking? So nothing much is really happening. But I think although nothing much is really happening, that's a good thing that at least there is a window of opportunity to start talking again. I know that they discussed 4 major areas during the last meeting in Fujian province in Guangzhou. They discussed 4 important areas. Number 1 is the fishery cooperation, then marine environmental research and protection. They talk about maritime safety at sea, especially the Coast Guard to Coast Guard cooperation, and the development of natural gas and oil. And for me, based on my understanding of the situation, there's no need to reinvent the wheel because many things have already been discussed during the previous administration. In 2019, we already created several working groups. We need to take stock of the discussions of that working group and move forward. Many things have already been discussed already. In fact, I still have a lot of references of the previous talks. So what we need is if we really want to have something done in this area, in the development of natural gas and oil, we need to revive the steering committee for that area, because there was a steering committee during the time of former president, and we also have a working group on marine environmental protection and even political and security cooperation. We need to revive all these working groups because we already did a lot of talkings during the time of President Duterte. That's why they created the working group, so that they will start working rather than talking. So take stock of all what we discussed before, and then after taking stock of what we discussed before, identify areas where we can start working. So we have to start working, but unfortunately, there are domestic forces and even external pressures preventing the Philippines and China to move further, to take a step further in their relationship. They want to stop everything that is happening positive between our two countries. And this is my fear, Dr. Yan Yan and Dr. Hubo. I think with the kind of development that we are seeing now, I think the relationship between the Philippines and China will deteriorate again. Because I think there is a calming of Philippines-China relationship now because of the Philippine chairmanship of the ASEAN, But after the ASEAN summit next year, we will start election campaign again, and politicians will use anti-China narrative to as an election tool. So for me, those kinds of developments are counterproductive for the improvement of Philippines-China relationships. That's why we need to exert extra efforts to bring back the nature of our relationship into a more cooperative mode, rather than hostile mode. So we need to counter these narratives against the improvement of Philippines-China relationship.
Indeed. Honestly, I'm a bit pessimistic about this oil and gas joint exploration project between our two countries.
As to the joint development, I think the Beijing should not trust this kind of joint development, because just you have mentioned the Philippines faced very difficult domestic legal and political pressure. So that's a trap for Beijing. So just don't take it seriously for China. As for the other cooperation, I think the China and the Philippines, even our bilateral general relationship has faced a very difficult time. Even that, I think that the bilateral economic relationship has a huge potential room to cooperation. Even Romeo has mentioned that the U.S., Japan has want to form some kind of economic corridor to against China's influence. But I think economically, I have confidence that China and the Philippines, the economic relation can be continued to develop, because for the U.S., the Philippines is not a good market for them. So I think the Philippines for a long time wants to have some economic help, economic cooperation with the United States. But United States, U.S. companies are very cautious. They are more cautious than China's companies. So I don't think that even they have Bamba Max wants to keep the very good economic relationship with the U.S., but the reality is the reality. They couldn't do that. So take it easy.
So can I understand that you mean that economic cooperation on land is much more easier than economic cooperation on the sea, like maritime cooperation? I think it's easier to cooperation of building bridges, like infrastructures, much more easier than oil and gas exploration on maritime.
Oil and gas joint development, no future. With the Philippines, joint development with the Philippines, no future. Don't trust that.
It's the most difficult thing. Well, let's move back to the defense and security issues related to the Balikatan. So we see that the Middle East crisis is going on between the United States and Iran. And so I wanted to ask Professor Rommel that have you learned lessons from the current Middle East crisis?
A lot of things happening now, and the Philippines is relying on information coming from the United States now, with the intention to strengthen relationship with the U.S. We're just following what the United States wants. This is not the situation in the Philippines. We're becoming like an echo chamber of American foreign policy in the Indo-Pacific. We now losing our strategic autonomy to balance our relationship with other partners. That's why I have been advocating for the concept of balance, that while we're doing this with the United States, we should not abandon pursuing greater cooperation with China. I call that strategic balancing. And right now, the balance is on the side of the United States. But for me, in order to assert a more independent foreign policy, we need to pursue this strategic balance, because this strategic balance will provide the Philippines strategic autonomy, and all these things, being done by the Philippines and China, the Philippines and the United States, only creating unintended consequences. Okay, and these unintended consequences will really hurt Philippine security rather than promote Philippine security. So while we are doing security cooperation with the United States, that should not stop the Philippines from also pursuing cooperation with China. And I think it is very important also for China to exert tremendous effort to reach out with our defense sector. Talk to our defense secretary, because our defense secretary has a different mindset. I think it's a reflection of the lack of relationship. You need to talk again, because our defense secretary now is very much anti-China, and for me, it's not good for our bilateral relationship. So I want to see our defense secretary and the defense minister of China shaking hands again and talking with each other.
Thank you. And regarding this current Balikatan exercises and global energy crisis, I wanted to ask what normal Filipinos think about this, the tension between the defense expenditure of this Balikatan and also the socio-economic priorities of this global energy crisis. So do you have any views on for the primary people, for the normal people in the Philippines? How do they
You know,
feel?
they don't have understanding of the big picture. They don't have understanding of that kind of relationship. Their interest is very simple. You know, very simple is to have affordable prices. They have something to eat. You know, very simple. But a lot of misinformation going around in the Philippines now. A lot of fake news about China. I disagree with the way we're handling the situation in the Philippines, because in the Philippines now, in the midst of all this economic hardship, they give dole-outs, economic dole-outs, you know, economic aid rather than producing jobs. What we need is to produce jobs. Right now, this is my main concern now. I don't know if this is related to our discussion now. Our electricity bill in the Philippines, there is a portion of our electricity bill where they put another cost to be used for economic aid of the poor, meaning they're using my money to feed the poor. What we need, the government should produce jobs. And China can create opportunities for the Philippines to produce jobs for the Filipinos. And that's what we are doing now. You know, we are now currently in HICO, we're talking about blue economy and economic cooperation. We need to tell our people that China can also contribute to our economic recovery. And this energy talks, that's why Filipinos became optimistic when they heard about China and the Philippines talking about oil cooperation. But of course, they don't know the details. They don't understand everything, because their interest is very, very simple. But when you talk about China and in the Philippines, they will use the South China Sea. And if they use the South China Sea, that will now create another perception, because, you know, the South China Sea in the Philippines is affecting the national sensitivity of the Filipinos. You know, its nationalist sentiment is being provoked. So now it disrupts the attention of the Filipinos away from economic cooperation to security concerns. So I think we need to change that kind of narratives prevailing now in the Philippines, and that is why our center, the Philippines Chinese Studies Center, is doing a lot of information campaign, and we're raising the awareness of our people that China and the Philippines are friends. They are not enemies. They are not enemies. That China can contribute to our economic development. And the United States also is a security partner, and we don't want the United States to use the Philippines as a proxy in its competition with China. So we're doing a lot of such kind of information drive in order to raise the awareness of our people of the value of continuing friendship between the Philippines and China. And for me, it's a difficult battle. In fact, it's not a battle. I consider it as a struggle. It's a difficult struggle, but in this struggle, I'm very inspired by the growing number of young people getting higher appreciation of China now. Now we have growing number of Filipino PhD students, and growing number of Filipino master students, and growing number of Filipino workers in China now. For me, these are positive developments, and we want all these people to contribute in raising the awareness of our people that Philippines and China are economic partners, they are friends, and they should not be locked in a geopolitical rivalry between the US and China. And for me, I look forward to the meeting of President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping this month. The improvement of US-China relationship, it can also contribute to the improvement of Philippines-China relations.
Thank you, Professor Rommel. And I think that you're right that it is the government's decision to balance its defense expenditure and energy crisis. So it's not for the normal people, but sometimes the governments will use the South China Sea as a weapon to generate some national sentiment to let the people think about China, negatively. So finally, I wanted to ask Professor Hu Bo, and also, what do you think about the future of the South China Sea, about the China-Philippine relations? Because this Balikatan exercises it's already a consistent one, and maybe next year it will expand, and also it will be more complicated. So what do you expect in the South China Sea?
I think this kind of exercise, Balikatan exercise, I think would not change the balance of power in this region. We should not be naive that this exercise can change something. But this kind of exercise, I think makes the situation much unstable, have more risks, because you exercise, China response, you will say a cycle, your spiral cycle will continue to rise. So that's not for the region. So as to the South China Sea disputes, I always say that the disputes cannot be resolved in the foreseeable future. We can only manage the disputes rather than resolving the disputes. There are no way to resolving the disputes in our lifetime, even in the next generations. So that's the reality. No matter what's your intention and emotion, so we should be pragmatic on that. I think for the Philippines, and not just for the Philippines, I think even for the world, we should not let South China Sea issue dominates the narratives on China-Philippines relationship. I think that Manila nowadays, they use, just as you're saying, they use the South China Sea issue as a weapon to explain everything involved China. So that's very unfortunate. Don't let South China Sea issue dominates narrative on China-Philippines relationship. For our relationship are very diversified, not just South China Sea issue. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Hu Bo. And Professor Rommel, some final words?
Yeah, I agree absolutely with Dr. Hu Bo that the South China Sea is just one portion of our bilateral relationship, but unfortunately, there is a sector in the Philippines making the South China Sea as the benchmark of our overall relationship with China, and we need to challenge that kind of view. We need to promote the perspective that Philippines-China relations is comprehensive. And South China Sea is just one aspect of it. And there are so much rooms for the Philippines to cooperate rather than compete. And if we compete, my argument is that our competition shall not prevent us from broadening our cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that the Balikatan is concluded, and also the Philippines continue to be the chair of this year's ASEAN chairmanship, and also the U.S. president is going to visit China, let's just wait and see and hope for the best. Thank you, my two distinguished guests. Thank you for participating in our dialogue today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.